I feel like I have to go somewhere else with my content, with my videos. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the channel. I just interpret material. I find that there's one common teaching that is a universal teaching. It goes beyond the robes, the dreadlocks, the medals, the crosses, everything. It goes beyond all of that. There's a reality in the background that is a cosmic reality that is a part of this. So that's what I go for, and that's what people don't see. They kind of like to stay in their religion. My name is Dan Paulson, and welcome to the channel and the video. This is not my normal sort of video, but for anybody that does watch, I guess I just have to probably throw it out on the table here. The one thing on this that I want to say, and I guess it kind of surprises a couple of people. When my channel started, it was very much me getting things figured out, talking about my early life, trying to describe where I come from. This is what qualifies me here. I didn't go to school and have some kind of a degree, and now because I have some knowledge, I'm going to teach you what this is about. That's not what it was for me. For me, it was I had this life experience. It started out in poverty and abuse, physical and mental, and it continued on that way for quite some time. I launched off in life with a lot of problems and having to come through those problems and work through those problems in ways that were eventually something that I found a pathway in this material that once interpreted were mentally interactive steps that taught me how to come through and heal myself. So there's self-healing steps in Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu material that helps a person heal, and they're all the same thing. Outwardly, they're not. They're carried in ways for different cultures that sound different. But when you interpret them, if you interpret them, they become the same. You become like each other. You're no longer competing against each other. You are no longer divided. You cease to be a divider. Since I said that, though, I want to go ahead and qualify it. If I were to go and understand the universe, I would know that there's many things in action, but they were a result of something else. There's something that happened in the beginning that's continuing to emerge, and life is, the universe is growing, matter is developing, gases are collecting and then exploding and creating more particles and things like. We could see that there's this progression of things going on in the universe that we are in the midst of. Now, we could look at that and say that everything in the universe is happening due to cause and effect, and that we emerge eventually in life and that we become a part of that cause and effect. It's the same thing, but it goes to the point that it goes to our life experiences, that cause and effect all actually happens at an energy level in memory, where the memories and the emotional state that we're holding on to is a cause that when held in place, we continue to have life experiences that are as an effect of that. So that is being held in. So that's something that we know of for ourselves. If we're holding on to something from our past, it continues to hurt. That you have to know that. Okay, so Buddha teaches karma, and karma is cause and effect, that the nature of what we're grasping is going to continue to cycle. Jesus teaches it too by saying the measure in which you judge others is going to be meted and judged back to you in a likewise way. This is also cause and effect. It's the nature of what we're hanging on to that we're judging, not outward, but inward. The nature of that is what continues to cycle out. So when you look at it that way, they're both teaching cause and effect. You have to interpret them that way, and then you begin to see that they are the same. Okay, I started off the videos with that way and then got into interpretation. As time went on, it morphed into the templates. It got more and more. There was a growth at one point where it was kind of, the interpretation was not very deep, was when I had the biggest growth in the channel. It was the Gospel of Thomas stuff. But after that, as the more I got into it and the more I saw commonalities and taught the commonalities, it's like it kind of dropped off. Comments dropped and views dropped off. It just kind of, the channel becomes more and more obscure the deeper and deeper I get into the interpretation. And the more I can see what's there, but I can't, it takes a long time to show people that. I've got hours and hours and hours actually into trying to show things that I don't know how to show them. And the acknowledgement really, it's like, whew, yeah, you got to find it on your own, I guess. You got to take the time. Nothing I'm doing is creating any dialogue for me that's meaningful. There are friends, there are people we're doing things and talking about stuff. But as far as, okay, what about this piece and part, and how do you interpret this part over here? I'm not seeing this component part of the template in place. I haven't found anybody who even can find a calling yet. It's like we're not even at step one. What do you do? So I think that as I look at my channel and I continue to gravitate towards that deeper core, the less and less interest there is, and the less there is for a capacity to follow. When you're finding the same thing in Hinduism as you are in Judaism and Christianity and Greek myth, people are like, dude, you out there, I don't know what the hell you're even talking about. That one core template, the concept, yeah, it's a personal thing, I guess. You have to find it on your own. Or most people will just like say, yeah, it's not there. You're crazy. You're just making it up, or you're fooling yourself, or something like that. If people give, I get that more than, yeah, you're onto something. This is what it would look like to us. I'm going to try to show this right here, but it's why it can be difficult to see. We're looking for concepts. This is a Jesus and a more recent one from King Arthur, the Welsh story. The Welsh is only about 500 years old. It's much more current. But this is the concept. They're both using the same process. Jesus is chosen. He's the one Son of God, had supernatural powers. Supernatural is an important component. Traveled with hand-picked disciples. Those represent the qualities that we bring along the way. And seeks the kingdom of heaven within. That is a mental space to be. Later we have Arthur. We become Arthur. Arthur is chosen as the one who could get Excalibur. There was somebody who could do one thing that no one else could. Had Merlin for supernatural. That's the few called right there. Had Merlin for supernatural powers. There's our supernatural element. That represents knowledge. Traveled with hand-picked knights. Those are the qualities that we bring along with us, and seeks the Holy Grail. That's the mental destination that we are looking for that would represent the kingdom of heaven within. That's why they're not easy to see or popular. It's a lonely place. Well, the videos that I make that are like, I'll stop and go, God, let me try something different. How to deal with YouTube Christians. Only because of experiences I have on other channels. Of course, that one turns right around and generates more interest, including it generates the YouTube Christian that you're talking about, which creates a fun thing. Eventually, that had to be shut down. The guy really there's a combat mind out there sometimes that just becomes maniacal and stuck in a loop. Reasoning doesn't work. There's this saying, was it Mark Twain? I don't remember who it comes from, but I'll tell you it isn't mine. It is very difficult to win an argument with an intelligent person. It's impossible with an ignorant one. That's true. When somebody's unreasonable, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's what happens. They just come at you with a very small piece of unreasonable commentary with incredible arrogance behind it. Anyway, so I responded to that in a way that made a friend of mine say, "Hey, I am actually surprised. I didn't think you were that kind of a person. I thought you were like all about love and peace." And I was like, "Well, I am about love and peace, and I don't feel like this emotional angst or anything like that. That's the important thing, is that we separate ourselves emotionally, and we always measure our emotions. How do you feel? That's going to cause your flow in life. So if you don't feel okay, stop and ask yourself why, resolve what's there. At first, that's hard because there could be a bunch of things all bundled up. You have to start, one thing at a time. Okay, well, I'll tell you that the conversation that I had with the person, I found myself having to defend myself because the person very much was trying to coach me and tell me and let me know that you're supposed to be about peace and love to the degree that you don't respond. He was referring to a response that I had against somebody that I knew from previous experience. We had been friends, and then the person kind of turned on me and treated me poorly, but then he disappeared. But when I posted some Gospel of Thomas stuff, he came back as the self-proclaimed renowned world expert who is now coming over to make sure that everybody knows that I am lying and not finding anything and leading people astray and all that kind of stuff. So I went ahead and, told them, yeah, I see what you got going on there. Nothing again. I went to your channel. Don't see anything posted up there. What is it your insecurity this time? Or do you just feel the need to exercise the narcissism, which basically what it is. The person told me one time as I was looking for the template when we were friends and talking, the first time that it really went awry is when the person told me that they were disappointed in me for going to find templates and leaving the Gospel of Thomas. What does that tell you about a person? And, to be sure, I'm not giving all the details. He and I talked for an awful long time about a lot of things that were very positive. But as I continued to work at the Gospel of Thomas, which he was just absolutely keen on, I began to expose things like, Pharisee is like a dog in the manger is actually the dog in the manger from Aesop's fables from 500 years prior to that from Greek sources. And so I began to kind of chip into the Gospel of Thomas, demonstrating that it was not a pristine document, that it was just a collection of things from elsewhere. And that, honestly, that is always, no matter what you're using, whether you're using the Torah, the New Testament, really anybody's material. They get upset when you find things in there that they don't like that there is something inside of what they believe that is actually framing and carrying that. It can upset people to find answers. Okay, so yeah, that's some control issues right there. You spot right off the bat and get away from someone like that. Anyway, so I responded in that same manner, knowing that person. And that's what really it was about. It was that, my friend seeing my response and saying, you're supposed to be about peace and love. I thought you were. I'm like, well, I am. Yeah, I am about all that stuff. But that doesn't mean you stop and take crap from people. You defend yourself. I look at this, even though it's the internet, that kind of creates a separation there. If I was in public and I'm standing there talking to somebody and this guy suddenly pops in, gets in my face and starts saying this stuff, would that be okay? It would be completely socially inappropriate. Why is it okay to do it on the internet? Anyway, it escalated. It went into other things. I said, no, there's things in the world that are bad. We're evolving. You need to judge it. Throwing peace and love at everything all the time is not going to change things. That doesn't mean you throw anger and hatred at it. You don't want to get caught up in it emotionally. But there are things out there emerging now, including one political group is where I went with it finally, that is poised to really do some incredible damage when it doesn't get its way. And that's just building. And he took offense to that, said he had family and friends in there. And I said, well, I do too, but that doesn't change what the group is doing. It isn't about, my family are not the ones that are out there. My friends and family are the ones doing, the right thing. I'm going to defer to Jesus on this one. Just because I'm related to somebody doesn't mean I'm supposed to do what I walk away from bad stuff. Anyway, he said something like, yeah, I'm disappointed in you and didn't think you were this way. I can't call you a friend. Goodbye. And hung up. That was it. It was like, wow. So I want everybody to know that I am not about this, no matter what, love, peace. There's a point in my life where I was, because I needed to be. It was a part of my development. I had a lot of issues. And I had to really embody that to keep myself from acting out. I did. I remember even getting flack from somebody about it. It's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. What if somebody was hurting your family? Blah, blah, peace and love really at that point? And, those are the things that you start thinking of at some point and think, well, if you're saying yes, then you must believe in why would you do that? If you understand that we're an evolving creature and that life is here and life is now, you act differently than someone who thinks that, well, we are here momentarily and we're going to have our real experience beyond, that this is just something. We're going to act differently. And that right there is probably the single biggest source of the conflict in what I'm teaching and what people want to hear. I think everybody likes to hear the teaching, but they want to hear that it comes from and returns to a supernatural source as opposed to a natural one. that we're not emergent consciously from a spiritual background, that we are consciously emergent from our life experiences while we're here. And those on this path that consider yourself advanced, do you recognize that is the very first Buddha comment from the Dhammapada? All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts and based on our thoughts. And the way I look at things is that way. And if other people don't look at it that way, we're not going to have the same beliefs on it. Along that line, I want to clear something up, because somebody's going to say, Buddhism's got reincarnation in there, Dan. And I'm going to tell you this. First of all, let's go to Christianity. Jesus teaches that there's going to be a second coming, and it's due any time now. And people look at that and go, yep, it's happening. It's happening. Thousands of years later, we're still looking at it. Jesus was right, but nobody interpreted it properly. Jesus Christ is the person on the path. It's a monomyth. Jesus is us before we become healed. Christ is us afterwards. So when Jesus says the end is near, it's anytime somebody follows his path. In Buddhism, anytime somebody follows Buddha's path and becomes enlightened, they find their Buddha nature. So they become a Buddha in the same way that you would become a Christ. So these two begin to correlate. So even though in Jesus' teaching it sounds like he's physically coming back, that's not really the case. The return is when you find your enlightenment. Buddha, same thing. This pathway of reincarnation means continually going in and healing yourself over and over and over again until you emerge. Outwardly, you wouldn't interpret it that way. You would think it's reincarnation. What does it say in the Dhammapada? Again, right in the beginning, this is verse number 6 from the Buddha. The world does not know that we must all come to an end here. But those who know it, their quarrels cease at once. Both Jesus and the Buddha want us to do this now. They're not teaching there's something beyond here. The religions and the way of life, the Buddhism way of life teaches that it continues. For the people that don't figure it out, they live thinking that. Jesus material, same thing. If you don't figure out what to do with it, you nevertheless live waiting for that to happen. The material is turned inside out. There's a point where I think that we are evolving, and it's going to be a survival, one tribe against another kind of a thing going on, and just throwing love and peace at it. You don't want to live hating it and going after it. But you need to recognize what it really is, and that it isn't going to be something that is a residual of the field of love that you are generating from yourself. It's not going to become that. It's going to be itself and whatever it decides to be. Actually, in this case, that's not true. What I would say is that the group is definitely, groups take on, birds of a feather flock together. Why is that? People that have the same sort of things exist together. Groups exist with their primary, in the case of that group, it exists with its primary unresolved issues as a cumulative group that drive the group itself. The greatest fears of the group drives that group. Yeah, that's it. That's cause and effect. That's using cause and effect to see what's happening. And you want to do the same thing, and you want to be an example. But being an example doesn't mean they're suddenly going to jump over to your side. Okay, so there we have it. Humans come from a bottom line reality. That's what I'm looking for, that bottom line reality. People find that bottom line reality, and historically they have, because they created a template on that, and they've created local religions, myths, and spiritual teachings, all based on that same template. That is what I want to find the template. If we're on the outside saying, I'm going to praise this, I'm going to worship that, I am going to meditate here, I am going to love this or love that or act this way or that way, you are living within the religious carrier shell, which is okay. We do want to turn the other cheek. We do want to have love and all of that is much up to a point. But there is a point we need to understand that what we are doing is existing in a physical world among creatures who are in the end, they might mentally find some way to justify a behavior that is still based in a core evolutionary process. And that needs to be recognized and understood. But at the same time, More simply, if somebody gets on my channel, especially in this case, somebody that I had a past with that I already know, but even then, newer people come along that just out of the blue give you a hard time. I have different options, don't I? My best option would be to just ignore them and not even do anything. If anybody talked on my channel, that'd probably be a lot easier to do. I get a few comments or things to read and some stuff to follow up on, but by and large, there isn't much. I respond to everything. Why not? There's just no activity there. The negative stuff gets repeated. That's the thing. If you have a positive exchange, it gets finished. When you have the negative exchanges, it's the same repeat over and over again. Anyway, all right. So that's it on the channel. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe it's just a matter of titles. Instead of saying, here is the code that I am finding, I should put up the same video, only title it saying, here's the proof the Bible is fake. You start, and that's not even clickbait. It's like, yeah, that's the proof right there. Can you see it? Probably not. But anyway, it would be like, yeah, not a clickbait title finally. I need to do something different in order to generate some interest to get this out there. It's actually like falling into it's collapsing. The farther I go, I have to do something different. I don't know what. There's a handful of people that will support me and say, you're doing good. Keep on doing. Look at me. Who else? I'm in a crowd of 3 or 4. After well over 3 years of putting out over 300 videos, I'm not doing the right thing, am I? How slow am I? All right, yeah. And if you come here thinking that, if you come in the beginning thinking, okay, this is going to be about love and peace no matter what, and you find out later that I'm morphing and moving on and teaching other things and it doesn't fit with you, then, that's fine. My life has been that way. You grow, you continue to find what life is about and continue to move on. Peace, love, absolutely, absolutely. But I have no problem with if somebody gets in your face and pushes you, that you don't push them back and then just get rid of them. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. People run around just pushing and being bullies to everybody and nobody says anything. I don't know. We're out in public. It's a difficult thing. I can sit here at home and say one thing. And again, we can always make those claims. You got to be peace and love. You can do that from a place where you're experiencing peace and love and you're talking to other people. You can't tell that war-torn kid over there that they need to experience peace and love. Don't worry about your dead mom and dad, the fact that you're starving. Peace and love. There's a point where you got to look at yourself and say, what am I doing and how universal is this teaching? What is it good for? It's good. Is it the answer to everything? Hell no. If you live that way, you can, but it denies other things that are really happening, that are not a part of what you have going on, that are a part of humanity and a part of the lives of others and a part of the lives of humanity. How responsible are we? If I only cared about me, I could say peace and love easily. If I start caring about other people and putting myself in their shoes, I go, oh shit, how does that work? How would it feel to me? I've been at times and place in my life grabbing food out of a garbage can. If somebody said, yo buddy, peace and love, I'd have probably wanted to leave them in that garbage can. Think about it. Put yourself in other people's shoes and stand up. Somebody gives you shit, knock their feet out from under them. Get down. It's verbally, it's all it. But they're not polite. Get rid of them. Aren't the Abrahamic peace, love people all gone? Who did we have? The Sadducees. We had, they were people who didn't teach the scripture to worship it and pray. They were the ones taught to turn it inward. Actually, they had a different belief on it, and they were looked at as poor, bad people. What happened to the Gnostics? Same sort of thing. We're going to turn it inward and use it somehow in a different way. Oh, mustn't forget the Essenes. Yeah, anytime groups came about that said, you know what, it's less about turning it over to some supernatural claimant thing out there that you're looking at, and more about turning it inward. And, somehow there's more of a personal connection with the story and interpretation, as opposed to it's just a carrier shell that is true historically and not to be interpreted. Everybody that tried to interpret it and turn it inward, they're gone. And they're not only gone, but you could go to standard, not everywhere, but I think if you find a lot of Christians that stand by Christianity and ask them about the groups, they would tell you exactly what they know and about them being evil and sacrilegious and being incorrect without really knowing what they really stand for. This is an indicator of people being conditioned and told what to believe, and they do. They simply do. The people that become groups that turn inward with it and use it a different way do not survive among the larger group that maintains the supernatural outlook. I'm not going to jump on either group. There's something different going on here. The ones that are turning it inward are the ones closest, but I haven't found anyone that knows exactly how to interact with it. None. Even in my Gnostic responses and material there, you get some positive and other people that go, buddy, you got no idea what you're talking about. Jesus is the divine Messiah, the Christ, the returning blah, blah, blah. Get on your knees and worship. It just runs the gamut. It's bizarre, the variations. Humans are amazing. The material is easy. Humans' interpretation is what's mind-boggling. Okay, again, this is a strange video. It's kind of I think a few people have questioned me about responding to people in negative ways and just letting things go. And I think I think that people don't know what you're completely about. And there is a point where I really don't have a problem. It's not as if the person is making me angry and I'm lashing back. What I'm doing is letting that person that thinks they're on a high horse know that they're on a broomstick pony. Okay, they're arrogant and they need to be told, don't get in my face and do that. Okay, that's the way I'm responding to it. I've said it before in other videos, and I hate to keep repeating certain things, but there's a foundational life experience that I have at the core that has to do with being raised, being whipped, but also being told that, having to say your prayers, or you would, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. My brother and I thought that if we didn't say that at night before we went to bed, we would probably die at night and go to hell for being disobedient. We prayed, we believed. We got whipped with belts, burned with cigarette butts when we were super young. The belts continued on much longer. The cigarette butts went with the biological father. We prayed, believing firmly as little children that Jesus would come and help us and stop the beating and stop the whipping. We pleaded, we prayed and begged and cried our hearts out. And Larry, at the age of 11, learned about heaven in Sunday school, and he hung himself that day in the woods, and I found him and cut him down. I was 9. You know what that means, right? His belief in Jesus and heaven is what caused him to put that rope around his neck and take his life, to leave the abuse. How fun is that to live with? Yeah, don't come at me like you're somebody. You don't know my life. All right, well, that's it for this video. I have to do something different, I know, and that was kind of a dark, I don't want to end on that moment right there. I do want to say that there's this incredibly, I've got my own reasons. Everybody's got their own. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. I don't know what to do. I can prove the Bible is fake. And for all the little children out there dying of cancer waiting to see Jesus, I don't want to do it. And for all the assholes justifying their hatred of others by using the same material, I want to. It's conflict. It's not comfortable. What a mess. It's just humans evolving. However, the ones that manage to maintain tight grasp on the Abrahamic supernatural will never see the problem. People who believe we are created will never understand that we're acting out as evolving creatures. Go find a brick wall, start banging your head. That's what I'm doing. All right. See you in the next video.